Good evening, everyone. It is the last day of Black History Month, so happy Black History Month. I'm so glad that you decided to wrap up Black History Month with this conversation. Um, Getting the conversation started last week on the nature gap and talking about Blacks in the outdoors with Jannard. Jannard and I had talked about, let's really have a panel discussion about this. And so he called up his friends and they agreed to join us tonight to have a more of a deeper dive, or I wouldn't even say it's so much more of a deeper dive because Jannard and I talked about a lot of things, and I'll have that recording up and out for folks that want to watch it. You can. But it is getting more people's stories. More hearing from other Black people from across the country with different settings and experiences. And I think that's enriching. It'll be enriching for me as I hear from the panelists. And I think hopefully it'll help us all figure out our stories with the outdoors, what it looks like to get into this thing professionally. And then most importantly, how do we make space, encourage, widen, include more Black people into outdoor recreation, not only just enjoying it, but also in the field as professionals, really being able to expand the opportunities, being able to run camps, heck, have our own camps, which some of that is happening, I know right now. Right now with a lot of groups across Facebook I've joined since I've been getting into this, like the different RV camps or different glamping site setup happening all over the country, which is really exciting. So I think this is just a great time for us to really get into this conversation about Blacks in the outdoors. And so I'm Rhonda Hill. This is Race and Faith, and we have been doing a lot of work with the Black Joy Retreat, which we started in 2021, which is how I met Jannard. And just from there, that's been increasing the way I see myself as a participant in outdoors. And then this part of advocacy for making sure racial justice is happening in outdoor spaces, but then also getting more Black people engaged in outdoor recreation in the wildland areas, not discounting the way we already do engage. Which we'll talk a little bit about that, how we express and experience leisure differently. But if you are interested in digging deeper into this and you want to expand your efforts to be more racially inclusive or just to be culturally competent around issues of race and outdoors, Jannard and I will have an opportunity to help camp leadership, camp boards really start having these conversations, and we'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the conversation. But now I want to make space for our lovely panelists. You guys been called lovely before. For our lovely active panelists to share who you are, a little bit about who you are and where you're located, and why did you agree to say yes to this conversation tonight. And so with that, I'll start with Jeremy. Introduce yourself. Where are you located, and why did you say yes to this conversation tonight?
Absolutely. So my name is Jeremy Freeman. I am the Group Services Director for YMCA Camp Duncan. We are located in Volo, Illinois. And reference, Volo is about 40 minutes northwest of Chicago and about an hour south of Milwaukee. I've been here since August of 2021. Thing that intrigued me about this panel, as Jannard approached me about it, we've worked together in Ohio before, and he approached me about wanting to have a conversation about this, not only for us but also for everybody involved. Kind of tell our story, how do things actually make us feel within this industry, because we've all had kind of the same thoughts from time to time. So obviously, not only just to help him out, but also because I look forward to seeing what everybody has to say. I look forward to hearing what Daquan and Jannar has to say more, and you, Rhonda, as well, about how you all feel about this industry and how it can basically make it better, not only as a whole, but for us as a people as well, not just us, all minorities as well.
Thank you. DQ, where are you located? You could tell us a little bit about you and what made you say yes to this conversation tonight.
So my name is DQ Williams. I am the Director of Leadership Programs at YMCA Camp Greenville. We are located in South Carolina. Also, to share a frame of reference, we're about an hour north of the actual city of Greenville and probably an hour south of Asheville, North Carolina, just to kind of give you an idea there. And for me, I decided to join this conversation, to really help out and support a friend. Jannar was a key factor in my success at YMCA Camp Wilson, which is a place that I formerly worked in, where we all worked together, myself, Jeremy, and Jannar at a time as well. But really was intrigued by the conversation, always looking to hear others' opinions and figure out the best way to approach the desire for people of color to be outside, be in this particular industry, being at camp, and figuring out the best way to support those and create spaces of belonging for all individuals, including people of color as well too. So just excited to hear the thoughts and opinions of my peers, and just hear different opinions from all angles here too. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Jannar, same set of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. It's nice to see you again. My name is Jannar, or welcome to see you again for the first time. My name is Jannard Henry. I work at Dade Cholla Center, which is in Ripon, Wisconsin, which is about an hour north of Madison and about 30 minutes south of Oshkosh, right on Green Lake. And I was excited about this opportunity because of the work that I do with Rhonda and the opportunity that we have at our site to host a Black Joy retreat, but also just to be able to widen my understanding of what this field looks like at other camps. What does this look like for other people of color? I'm extremely blessed to have two friends that work in the camping industry who are also people of color. It's kind of a rarity, but it was really nice to be able to ask them on and see what their perspective is, especially from different parts of the country too, because it is vastly different depending on where you are and the dynamics that you have at your sites, where your site is located and the populations that you serve. And so hearing from them and in the sectors that you work in, I work in a faith-based sector and they work in a more secular setup. And so it's nice to hear how that affects this topic in general, and what nets are cast and how wide are they cast and what programs are being put on in different areas, so that everyone can use that information, because the outdoors and camping is for all, and so sharing information across the board is always fantastic to hear from other professionals, and how they do their work. And I respect the work that the two of them do, and so being able to highlight them and the jobs that they do at their facilities and what they do to help push more people into the field career-wise and recreationally, it's something that I'm excited to hear about.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well to hear and see where this conversation goes tonight. To help us get to know you all a little bit more, I'm interested in knowing your story of the outdoors. What is it that drew you to the outdoors? What do you like about it? What's your favorite outdoor activity? If you would take 2 to 3 minutes, and any one of you can start this round of questioning, answering this question, but just share, what drew you to the outdoors and what is your favorite outdoor activity?
I'll go first. So I only got a chance to experience camp one time, and that was in 5th grade. Our school went to Camp Cosby in Alabama for outdoor education. It was a 2-night, 3-day event. We got to learn everything about environmental education. This is the first time I ever heard about that. To give you an example, I was under the impression that we would have to cook our own food. So I stole my mama's George Foreman grill, put it in my bag, and took it there. I was like, hey, that's what I thought. So that a lot of minorities don't know that this type of thing exists. It's kind of that same mindset. But those 3 days, 2 nights were the greatest I've ever had. I never got a chance to go back and work. I never got a chance to go back and be a camper because school sports took over my life during the summers. When I graduated college, my goal was to be a teacher, to get into coaching that way. The best way to go about that is to work at camp, be a camp counselor. So that's how I got my start in the field. And after working there for about 4 or 5 months, I realized this is what I want to do, because at the time I saw so many different people coming to camp just to be themselves, to have fun, have no cares in the world. So that's the one thing that really drew me into camping. In terms of my favorite activity, I will say the climbing tower, simply because you get to see everybody conquer their fears, whether I'd say it's a challenge by choice. You choose your own challenge. If your challenge is putting on the harness and that's it, guess what? I got you. I'll make sure you get to accomplish that. And seeing these kids accomplish all of those goals is just simply amazing.
Awesome. Okay, DQ, Jannard, what drew you to the outdoors, and what's your favorite outdoor activity?
I'll go next. Excuse me. I would say I definitely remember spending a lot of time outside as a kid. Like that was just something that we did. I grew up in New Jersey, so there wasn't wilderness, I guess, if you will. I grew up in the inner city. But when I got a chance to move to the South, I really got a chance to experience more outdoor activities in that sense for the most part. But it was pretty much all self-driven, hanging out with friends and things like that outside, just in the woods, walking around. I think what drew me out to it was just my sense of curiosity, and just what can go on out here, what happens out here, just being in a different space. The air was different. Kind of what drew me into camping. I never had the opportunity to go to camp as a kid, but I didn't find camp until I was junior in college. Over that summer, I got a camp counselor job, and it literally changed my life in the first week. It was similar to kind of how Jeremy was saying. It was an opportunity to see a space really for the first time where people can just come and be themselves. There was no preconceived notion of what you needed to be or who you needed to be, kind of thing. Kids, adults, everyone can kind of come there and just be who they want it to be, and kind of create this identity for themselves. And it helped kind of shape my identity, because I was definitely at that time in life where I was a little lost and not sure what I was wanting to do. But I was grateful for that, and just, like I said, just really changed my life, and wanted to jump into that field, and have been doing it ever since then. And I would say my favorite outdoor activity is either the zip line or the high ropes course, just because in those spaces you can kind of have the creative freedom to tackle the course how you want to when it comes to high ropes, but you also overcoming a challenge, similar to how Jeremy mentioned with the climbing wall. And then with zip lining, it's just a really cool rush to be kind of zipping through the air and being able to kind of take in your entire surroundings around you, especially on a really high zip line, because then you can see out and about in the entire field. You can basically see all of camp, which is really cool. So I would say those are my favorite activities and what kind of drew me outside.
Thank you. Jannard?
Yeah, I'll jump in with what drew me to be outside. I'll kind of reference one of my favorite comedians. His name is Tony Baker, and he talks about, wanting to be outside. And outside is the only thing that we wanted to do as a kid. You would always ask your parents, can I go outside? Can I go outside? That was mostly because there was nothing to do inside, but also because all the fun stuff happened outside. Friends are outside, and outside is an endless possibilities, and it's non-judgmental. you can go outside and just be yourself. The trees aren't going to say anything to you about, your hand-me-down shoes. They're not going to say anything about the way that your hair looks. They're just going to be there and let you climb their branches and let you sit in their shade. And so being able to be out in nature is judgment-free zone. And so I was always drawn to that because I was a unique, quirky kid who had his favorite comic books that he liked to read, and wasn't really big into sports. And so like being outside and not wanting to throw the football around, you got to find something to do. And so the woods was a nice, quiet place where I could observe the nature around me, the life that was around me, and kind of get connected to that. So I've always been drawn to the outdoors in that kind of way. And then I had the opportunity to go to camp because my mother was I was a director of an after school program that sent underprivileged children to camp and helped children who were struggling in school. So it was a summer program and an after school program where you could catch up on your schoolwork. You're separated by grades, and then we would go to camp together if you kept good grades during the program. And it was always a great time as a camper, being there, being accepted for who I was. I fully got the sense of the camp values of everyone is welcome here. We love you. We care for you. And we're going to make your experience great. The challenge by choice. You have choice in what you do in life, where you're going to go, what activities you want to do. It was very freeing as a kid, and to kind of mimic my experiences that I had outdoors by myself, but just with a community around. And so that was even more important, is that you can do it by yourself, but community is more important, and it's much more meaningful when you have a community that you can do it with. Having both of those are great. And so I got drawn into the outdoors based on that. And I continued to be a part of the outdoors, being a counselor for many years at a small camp in Ohio, and then being an outdoor educator for a while at the camp that I met these two fine gentlemen at, and then moving on to be a leader at the camp that I currently work at now, and taking on multiple different positions. Many people who work at camps know that you stay there long enough, you'll do every job that they have imaginable. So it's kind of nice.
What's your favorite outdoor nature
activity? My favorite outdoor activity. So I would say that my favorite outdoor activity was field games, especially if they are like creative in nature. At camp, there's always like these unique ways to play tag, right? You got 10,000 different ways that you can play the same activity, but you put some kind of theme or some kind of new rules on it. So field games were a great thing, and the water. I really enjoyed being in the water, doing boat rides. I didn't like deep water, but I did enjoy being in a boat and going on canoe trips and canoe hikes, and water ecology as well. So just like exploring the life that's in the water.
Nice. Thank you so much. I think for me, my camp experience definitely was, I didn't have a lot of it. I went to camp once, like a church camp, when I was a teenager in high school. But it was not, believe it or not, I wasn't really focused on the outdoor. It was more like a youth revival type of a thing. So we didn't do a lot of recreational outdoor activities in that way. And so I think my first real experience with that was when we did Black Joy Retreat, with the different things that was made available to us to engage in. My favorite outdoor activity is walking. I like to go for walks. I would almost say hiking, but I mean, let's just be real honest here. I'm not gonna do that much hiking. Let me go for like a stroll. Maybe that's what I like, strolling. How about that? I'll take a nice stroll at the lakefront here, or walk around my neighborhood, walk through the park, those kinds of things. Being in an urban setting, right, which is where I'm at, most of my things really haven't landed me out. I don't do a lot. I have one friend, he'll drive off to Kettle Moraine, or he'll go to the different state parks and really do get into hiking that way. I haven't gotten there yet because I think I don't want the rigor. As you all were talking about, pick your own challenge. I haven't gotten to the point of getting to a challenge I want to pick yet. So if I can just go for a stroll outdoors, I'm happy with that. I enjoy the piece of it. I enjoy being able just to collect my mind, and being able that we live on a lakefront, being able just to go down to the lakefront area and just walk along there, or just even sometimes just absorb the sun setting, and just, being feeling like I'm in the majesty, of it, is something that's really humbling for me and peaceful for me. So yeah, I think just listening to a lot of the stories about how we got introduced and what age, I think that probably really matters too, that the age and the frequency that folks from our community get to engage in camping activities, being on a camp setting. It was funny, Jeremy, listening to you talk about that Foreman Grill. Having Black Joy Retreat, to your point, it is because so many of us haven't gone to camps or been in camps or had a lot of those experiences. I have people all the time with Black Joy Retreat, they'll message me or call me, Rhonda, what do you need me to bring? All the time, what we need to do for food. And so then I have to try to explain to them, which when I tell people, think of like all-inclusive, because people used to that all-inclusive nature from going to like trips to Jamaica or those other kind of places, those resorts. So I tell them to think of it like that. I mean, obviously not a resort, but when you tell them it's all-inclusive, they get it like, oh, okay. So yeah, when you brought the Dormant Foreman Grill, I was like, oh yeah, I totally understand that. So some of you have already started and shared a little bit about how you started your career, but I would like for you to get a little bit more specific about, especially for other folks watching and listening, hoping to get more Black people engaged in thinking about careers at camp. How did you really get started? I heard it seems like for all of you, once you got started, it was something that hooked you there, and you just like, I'm in. What was it like for you to get into the industry and then be able to see yourself growing in the industry? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can start on this one. Like I shared, I got a camp counselor job my junior year in college. And kind of took it and ran from there. And that's kind of how I got my start. Came back for another summer because I really loved it a lot. And that's kind of where I wanted to also started to grow in that sense. I made a personal choice to kind of switch career paths, I guess, if you will, like really wanted to dive into it. And with that, it came to like, okay, how can I advance in this field? How do I grow? How do I kind of learn in it? And then because I had a very like linear thought process when it comes to it's like, oh yeah, like the hardest workers, if you work hard and you're one of the hardest workers, then you'll be rewarded with leadership positions, and you work hard there, and then so on and so forth, and it continues. Then before you know it, you're a director. Surprise to myself, that is not how it happened. How I got to the position that I am right now has been a pretty arduous road, a long road to get here. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, kind of thing, and just kind of moving from different places. I started out in my camping journey started out with an organization called the Clemson Youth Learning Institute. Worked out with a bunch of their different camps. Then I found Camp Greenville in 2016 and was an outdoor education instructor, like how both of these guys have been. And really just kind of put my nose to the grind. That was something that I felt like I was like really good at, putting my nose to the grind and like creating a very humble and like great experience for those around me. And again, I thought it would translate into more rapid success, but it took a little while. The first full-time job I got at camp was actually at Camp Wilson, where I met Jannard. I had already met Jeremy because we had worked together at Greenville previously, but I got to Camp Wilson, and it was a very different experience than I was used to at the camp that I was at, Camp Greenville, and other camps that I'd already been at. But the learning process was kind of still the same. Like I had to find out where the curve was and find out how to excel above the curve. And I feel like I did really well. I didn't live up to the maximum standard that I'd set for myself, but I feel like I accomplished a lot when I was at Camp Wilson. But realized it wasn't a place for me. So I kind of took a step back and I went back to Camp Greenville to be an outdoor education instructor, to kind of reset, find my grassroots again, to really like figure out what's the thing inside of me that's going to make me be a great leader. And even that was a little bit tumultuous, like spent a lot of time kind of going through here, going through the rigor, as we mentioned earlier here at Camp Greenville. And really it was like a stroke of luck. Like I say luck, it's not really like it's a stroke of bad luck, I would say, because unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to shut down some programs that we had here at Camp Greenville, which opened up a space, theoretically, not it actually happened. It opened up a space for me to come on here full time at Camp Greenville and just kind of taking in that role and developing. I was a program manager when I became a full-time staff person, and developed that role into now being a director of leadership programs here too. So definitely the road wasn't smooth sailing kind of thing, a lot of ups and downs here, but I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've been able to have and because of camp. And I think because of those opportunities and because of the way that it happened, it's kind of made me more resilient in that sense as well too. But I hope that answers your question.
Oh, for sure. I want to hear other people's story, because I already got more questions off of what you shared. But before I start asking questions, I want to hear from Jeremy and Jernard, for you, how did you start your career? Was your path similar to Daquan or DQ? Which one of you wants to share next?
I can go ahead. I can go. So it was somewhat similar to DQ. I didn't get into camping in terms of working in camping until I just finished college, and I knew I wanted to be a teacher. That way I can get into coaching. The best way to do that is to get experience working with kids. And I said, hey, let me go down there. I know they're hiring for summer camp. Let me see. I got an interview scheduled, and she hired me right there on the spot. Halfway through the summer, it was about July, the program director, she asked me, did I want to stay on and teach outdoor education in the fall? I didn't have anything else better planned, and I, for that point, enjoyed my time there. So I did that, and then I can distinctly remember the day. There was a day in October I realized I can do this full time. This is something I'm thoroughly enjoying. I'm learning more about myself than I knew before in these short 5 months. So that is kind of what sparked me wanting to be full time and treating this as an actual career. And after that, I was at Camp Cosby for about 2 years. And then there was no leadership opportunities there for me. The people who were in those positions were pretty set in those positions. They wanted to stay there. So I looked elsewhere. And the first place I worked at outside of Alabama in my entire life was in New York. I worked for the New York YMCA camps. It's kind of upstate New York and Huguenot, New York. To give you a reference, you leave camp, you go to the right 15 minutes, you're in Pennsylvania. You go to the left in 20 minutes, you're in New Jersey. But in order to get to the 5 boroughs, you have to go 2.5 hours straight. And it was very weird, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself. That was also where I realized that I can enjoy myself with people that look like me, because the majority of our campers came from the 5 boroughs, and they all came on assisted scholarships. So I was like, okay, so there are camps that cater to not only one race, but not only one minority, not only one religion. They cater to everybody. So that's where I really set my feet in, saying, hey, this is what I want to do. And as the years passed, I was able to continue to move myself up the ranks at different camps. That's why I met DQ at Camp Greenville. And while I was there, I got my first full-time position as the associate program director at Camp Collins in Oregon. Never been to Oregon in my life, but I knew for me to continue on my career path, that is exactly where I want to go. I started there August of 2017. March of 2018, I was in the hospital for 2 months with meningitis. And I had to kind of reevaluate a lot of things. Like, is this something that I want to do? I didn't mention a couple camps I worked at in between. I kind of worked seasonally in a couple places until I got that big break in a full-time position. And all those places, there were no people in leadership positions that looked like me. They all kind of had the same face. They had the same attributes that were very similar to each other. And I was quick to notice that because when I'm speaking as a Black man, I didn't know much about camping other than my one experience going in 5th grade. And then I will say I got cleared by the doctors in July 1st of 2018. And July 2nd of 2018, I got a letter from Camp Collins in Oregon that said, hey, we have eliminated your position. They were given a certain amount of time for me to become clear by the doctors to return. I guess it was in their policy. And I got clear on day 32, basically. And they were quick to say, hey, you're not going to have this position, but we invite you to apply for a new position. I saw the description of the position. I fit none of these qualifications. They wanted somebody more seasoned. So I appreciate them at least giving me the opportunity to interview. At that point, I was like, is this something that I really want to do? So I reached out to DQ, said, hey, I'm sitting at home. I told him about what happened in Oregon, and he said they're looking for instructors. I have no problem going back a step in order to get where I need to be. So DQ was able to hook that up for me. And he doesn't know this, but I'm actually forever grateful for that because I was on my way out. I was looking at other opportunities elsewhere. I figured that chapter had closed, but he opened that book. And then being able to spend time with him and Jannard, it made me realize there are people that look like me in this industry. They're everywhere. It's all about representation. Even if there aren't that many, I can still be representation by myself, or DQ can be representation by himself. So hopefully I answered your question. So I was on a fast track, and then God told me to settle down. This isn't where I want you right now. Once I got that through my head, I was like, okay, I understand. Do your thing. I'm going, whatever you say, I'm right there with you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is answering my question. Thank you. Jannard, how did you grow your career, or how did you start your career, or what's been some career ups and downs you want to share with us?
Yeah, I'll talk about my career path. And it's similar to DQ talking about the ups and downs of camping. And I feel like I have this like dissonance when it came to being a camper, where I spent all my summers, to being a staff person, and the realities that I had as a camper and the realities I had as a staff member did not match up. And it made it challenging. The community was not the same. The support that I received was not the same. And some of that fast tracking, or having the ability, working as hard as you possibly can to be in the positions that you're given, didn't necessarily show its face, because I, for a long time, felt like I was working really hard and that I had all the skills and that I was supposed to be in these different roles, and that I would just work my way to the different spots. But, camp is about community, camp is about connections. And like many other jobs, connections get you places before skills can get you there. And so people knowing other people, their opportunities were handed to them or given to them or offered to them before they were offered to me. And some of the community that I felt as a camper kind of lost because I'm by myself, and now I'm here to do a job. Now I'm here to perform, and these are the expectations that I have of you. And some of the culture and some of the what things that you bring are not some of the values that we have within some of our camps. Even it's just culturally different. These are not some of the things that this is not how we do our best first service. This is not how we do this activity. We don't play this type of music. We don't do this. Even if I would have heard that as a camper. And it's just really interesting. It caused a little bit of a dissonance for the career. And so for me, it was, I love this so much. You're going to have to work hard to get me out of this role. Like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to make my space. If that means I have to travel to different spots, I will find a spot that will appreciate who I am and what I bring to the table, because I bring a lot of value to the roles that I serve professionally and the perspective that I serve as well. So finding other people who look like me and do this job and give me perspective on how to both be yourself, and sometimes assimilation is not a poor thing, but just finding a way to work within the bounds and not just completely blow up what is the camp world and the traditions, respecting both of those things. It's nice. Having conversations with DQ and Jeremy and how camps are different around the country, and that we're meant to be here. I think there's a lot of bumps in which I was like, man, am I really supposed to be here? Maybe I should just go back to teaching, because I went to school for education and I taught for a while. Maybe I should just go back to teaching. I know that I'm appreciated and valued there for what I bring. And I know I can be valued here. And there's many people who have given me opportunities. But it is finding your spot, finding those connections, then showcasing your talent as well. So having the connections and showcasing your talent to get your career. And it wasn't an easy path. Some of my colleagues have talked about, not on this call, but have talked about, working in camping, it was kind of an easy path for me. And I would say that it was definitely not an easy path. And me fighting for values that I think are important with camps, because sometimes camps are not ready to hear some of the things that I bring to the table, or it's just not how we've run things for the past 100 years. Or camp wasn't created with this in mind. So it's really hard for us to get to that spot. It doesn't really feed our base. So how do you balance that? So, but perseverance, finding people who do this work, who continue to want to make a better camping world is why, and me being able to say, I want to be that person. I want to be that person for other people to create those spaces. Because without me or without others, then the spaces aren't there. If I just say, well, this is too hard for me. And that's why we have a support system. So when it does get hard, I can rely on other people and ask for their support.
Wow. So with the ups and downs, I was listening to you, DQ, talk about you were looking for it to be that that's kind of like straight line, if you will. Like, if I work really hard and if I apply myself here in this space, people will see my hard work, my grind, and it'll just, promote me to the next level. I was wondering, was there any mentorship for you all in the space? Did anyone in a higher rank see your potential or come alongside and mentor you and try to help you grow professionally, or give you some wisdom on how you actually do grow in the field?
I'll jump in on this one. I had a couple of people that I would say were instrumental in keeping me going in this field and gave me opportunities when other people didn't give me opportunities. There was one person who was my director for a while, said, Jannard, I'm going to come to you. We've got this list of issues that you brought to my attention, right? You brought to my attention that we took a staff photo and you were in the bathroom and we didn't wait for you. And you said that was problematic. I'm going to listen to you. Tell me why you felt like that was problematic. And I'm the only Black person on staff. And so it's way more impactful to me to not be in the staff photo. And that it felt like it was done purposely, and so that person listened to what I had to say, my perspective, and not just blow it off as like, oh, you were just late, so we took the photo without you. and gave me opportunities to, one, bring that perspective to camp of, some racial justice pieces, not just that example, but what do we do if we have a bunch of Black kids who come to camp and they request to be in your cabin only, Jannard, or they request they don't have any place to go. What does that look like from our perspective? Can you talk to me about this? And then giving me opportunities to be a better program, saying, you've got a skill here. I want you to do this. Or people who saw me with their kids and said, you would be a great gymnastics coach. I don't know anything about gymnastics, but they liked the energy and they gave me an opportunity to do something outside of that because they saw the talent. And so they mentored that, and in the sense of, you should keep doing this. You're good at this. I can't say that I had a lot of mentorship outside of these two guys here within the camp world professionally, like how to be a better professional outside of maybe some conferences that I've gone to, but people who sat down with me and said, hey, I see you, let me direct you this way. I maybe have a handful, maybe I can count on a hand, but not like a plethora.
Yeah, I would say I agree. Like, I think the first time I could really recall any type of mentorship was my second year at Camp Greenville. Like, I was a program staff person my first summer, and then like did outdoor education here, but didn't really receive a lot of like quote unquote mentorship or leadership in that sense or fashion. It was like, you do this job really well and like you're favored because you do the job well, kind of thing. So I guess in that sense, but I would recall the first style of like mentorship that I ever received was going in my second summer at Camp Greenville. I was a division leader, and our director of camping, she's still here. Like, she kind of took, I would say take me under her wing kind of thing, but she took a little bit of a mentorship role in that sense, like in a very minimal sense, like just trying to do what she can to kind of help me get to the level that, like, she was the first person to probably ask like what I wanted to actually do, what level of camping that I want to be at, kind of thing, and kind of help me get there for the most part as well too. And I would say like a little bit when I was at Camp Wilson, the executive director at the time, though his methods aren't always the best, kind of thing, he definitely has a heart for people, and he reached out to, he was definitely like, he didn't say this outright, but I'm pretty sure the only reason I got the job at Camp Wilson because he was the exec and he makes the final call. So he was the one to say like, let's bring this guy in. And I don't think everyone else was on board with that, considering relationship, how tough it was to build relationships there when I was there. But there was a little bit of mentorship there. He was the one that taught me about why trainings and where I need to go and like how to get signed up for these things and why they were important. And so it's like how to help you stand out. So I definitely got some there. And then when I came back to Camp Greenville, and I would say right now, like the mentorship has been very, like, again, returning in the director of camping I had. And now I would say also like I've had to go out and seek mentorship as well too from other, like one of the executive directors in our association is he's an African-American male, and we actually went to high school very close to each other, not at the same time. Like where I went to high school and where he went to high school is actually very close to each other. So we know the area very well and we connect off of that. And he's a mentor of mine right now. And just, yeah, I've had to go out and seek some mentors, like when I go to conferences, national conferences or local conferences and things like that, seeking out the mentorship, because I find that they have a little bit more investment there too. So I would say like that will be the scope of the mentorship that I've had, but that it didn't start until like really till I got to Camp Greenville and until I got into the YMCA for sure.
Yeah, I just find like we talk about this, our work provide training around diversity, equity, and inclusion for various companies, and the idea of mentorship always comes up and how important that is, especially in a lot of those spaces where it is dominated by people who are white, and you have very few minorities, not hardly any women, hardly any other people of color, and on and on to all of the other isms, right? And so then having someone who can mentor you and help you grow and know how to navigate the culture of camping and what that looks like professionally, I just think it's so important. Since I've been doing this and meeting people and having these conversations that are camp directors, or they've maybe come to some of my presentations, people are often asking me to send them campers. Can you send me some camp counselors? We're hiring. And I just never feel comfortable with that because I'm like, the families that I'm just building a relationship with them. And so if I send them to your camp, I can't vouch for you. It's so much of, when it's not that many of us there, not that many Black people or other people of any other minority there in the space, it's really hard for me to put my name on the line, because it's so sensitive when you don't know what protections are going to be there, what support is going to be there, who is going to help the young camp counselors who are living in rural USA somewhere for the next 3 months or so, who's going to help them navigate that. And I think a lot of people don't really think that through, of what that really looks like to be the only. I was sharing, most of my experience so far has been working with religious camps, and more often than not is rarely I see any other person of any other racial background, not just Black. And so I was just wondering, since you all are kind of have this, well, Jannard and I are both here with more of the church camp experience, what does that racial makeup look like? Even though I know the Y is a Christian organization, but it's still very secular. So I was just wondering, like, what's the racial makeup there? Jeremy, you were saying you went to the ACA conference recently. What was that like? Was there racial diversity in that space? How are you all kind of navigating that? Which is to our last point. Thinking about some ways you would suggest camp leadership equip their staff and team and possibly board for racial diversity. So this is a packed question I'm putting out there. What's the racial makeup of your settings? Jeremy, I would love to hear about your experience at the ACA. I'm hoping it's a little bit more racially diverse than what I've experienced. And then what would you suggest or say to leadership as it relates to diversity and expanding and equipping the team, equipping board members for real racial equity in this outdoor recreational space? Jeremy, we can start with you.
Absolutely. So one thing I think that is needed to not only promote diversity, but to show diversity is all about marketing, primarily because it's different in different regions of the country. For example, here in Illinois, I have two very diverse, different sets of people when it comes to outdoor education. We have our CPS schools, which is Chicago Public Schools. 90% of our Chicago public schools are either African American or Latino. And then the surrounding areas of our CPS schools are predominantly white. So one thing that our organization has done better is somewhat marketing within the actual city. When people think of like us as camp professionals, camps are not going to be located directly in the city. It's going to be out there a little bit somewhere. And that's one thing I've also wondered myself. For example, I can't remember where I saw this, but the YMCA has many African Americans working for it. The thing is, they work in our branches. And the one thing that kind of stuck out to me is when it comes to working in the branch, you know what your schedule is. You work like 9 to 5, go home, have a life, as opposed to working in a camping setting. You never know what's going to happen. I have overnight groups. Somebody could call me at 2 a.m. telling me somebody threw up in the middle of the room, and I have to deal with it. Not a lot of people want to do that. Unfortunately, not a lot of people, regardless of race, want to deal with a call like that. But that's the reality of it. Is a lot. This is from speaking with a few people that work within the branch, and I spent a year working in the branch. Those set hours is something that appeals to them more, as opposed to what could happen at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., waking up at 7 o'clock for 8 o'clock breakfast, things like that. When it comes to getting people to our facilities, that is all about marketing. One thing our association can do better is market within the branches, especially within the inner city. We have 17 branches in the city of Chicago alone, and we have 4 camps within the YMCA of Metro Chicago. So it's all about getting every ethnicity seen. When people think of camping, they're going to think of going out in the woods, sleeping in a tent. No. There's way more. We offer way more than that. So it's all about making sure you know exactly what to put out to people in order for them to at least get them interested. Getting them interested, that's the main thing. Once you get them interested, we can get them in the door, because we're all professionals in our area of our career. When it comes to the ACA, I was thinking about it. Dick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say I saw about 40 to 50 African-American camp professionals. I want to say I saw close to 90 or 100 people of different minorities, different ethnicities. And if that's the case, then there were 1,700 white people. So that's, we got to figure that out, which is why I'm glad I'm on this Zoom call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, like I was at the ACA National Conference too, and I think it's definitely it's an issue that a lot of people of color, minorities are aware of in those spaces as well too. Like we talked about the different, I would say there were 2 camps there specifically from a Latinx based culture. Like all of their staff were Latinx, but that's the camp because their camp is based in Spain, and so like in different Latinx cultures as well too. So it's like, but yeah, like you're right, probably close to 1,700. Like if you think about it, even the breakdown of my own group that I came with, we brought 7 people there, and there are only 2 of us are people of color. In for the most part, so like it's just that was just our group, and so most of other groups are kind of share that similar markup, but it's definitely like an issue that we have to kind of not necessarily force, but we have to make sure we are heard and bring ourselves to the table in order to make this space more diverse, equitable, and really and inclusive as well. But even taking it a step further and creating a space of belonging, because that's probably a big issue that leads there too. Like a lot of us might potentially get to that level, or like Jeremy said, like this, like being at camp and being in a branch is totally different. Understanding what our circumstance, I know for me, my circumstance, my family circumstance, my life circumstance definitely impacted my choices in the camp, in the camping field, and others, it does that for the same as well too. So I think it's just understanding marketing is a very great strategy, and even the way that you market, like it's one thing to put people of color on your postcards or on your marketing material, but it's another thing to put them in positions of leadership on your marketing materials. Like if all your marketing material are kids of color receiving things or in the like receptive thing from the white leader or the white woman leader or the white man leader kind of thing. Like that also sends a certain message to the people that are looking at it, because there's like in the just depending on from people, like not everyone likes asking for help, although like from the Y I can speak from that particular space, like we offer that opportunity for everybody, like from any kind of conversation help that they need and program accessibility, like we're willing to make those steps and do what we can to be there. But it could be hard if we only show people of color in those spaces, like always in the reception of those, and that isn't always the case. Like there are lots of like I was talking about my mentor earlier, he comes from a space of wealth and kind of thing, so he's never identified with that particular moniker, but a lot of people do. So making sure that your marketing material is also diverse, equitable, inclusive, and create spaces of belonging. And like Jeremy said, like once we get them there, then it's our responsibility, not just our unique talent, but it's our responsibility to hook them into like, yeah, like here's a space of belonging where you can be out here and try something new, try something different. And I think that will kind of slowly but steadily increase the idea. Something that I heard at the conference actually is like camp is inherently something that was created for little white boys, kind of thing. And like, and if you think about that statement, like, yeah, if you think about all the starter camps, they're all like it's all boys camps, and they're all like young white males, and that's and like in that idea, and that idea still permeates in all of camp now, even places that are diverse, equitable, inclusive, and create space of belonging. Like, is camp something that people think of as something that's for them, if you will, too? So kind of sharing that information and sharing that that anybody can be in this space, for the most part. And so it will be a lot of work, but I, for one, am willing to kind of take on that work and do as much as I can to add on and like provide a space for a belonging for people of color, and especially young Black males and young Black females like coming into the space, because there's such a power there when you realize like the magic of camp and the magic of being outdoors. Like once it takes over your brain and everything like that, it's something that impacts me on a daily basis, and I'm proud of being here, and I want to share this spaces with many people as I possibly can.
Yeah. I think, when you talk about marketing, that is very important, and like it's a delicate issue. It's a fine line, because colleges do that, right? And I know where I went to college is predominantly white, but somehow they found all these Black people to plaster on there, and that's disingenuous.
Yeah.
And so it's figuring out how to have some integrity with that, as you try to recruit and get people to be a part of it. As we wrap up, Jenard, I'll let you put in your comments to that last question about, what would you suggest around equity? And if you want to talk about the racial makeup of where you serve, you're welcome to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to jump on what DQ said there about the marketing materials and just talk about putting your staff of color and showcasing them in power positions, right? In positions of influence, positions that they make and shape the way that camp is run here, and that they're doing things that make the culture great. And that's could potentially be hard for some communities that don't want to potentially showcase that those individuals shape their camp experience. That may rock some bases around America, that, oh, you have these people of color shaking and shaping this community that I thought me and my family are supposed to go to, and these are the values. I don't know if they share the same values as me, even though they work at a facility that I've been frequenting for years and years. And so giving that power to your staff of color is meaningful too, because it showcases not only do I respect you, I want to showcase that we as a community respect you and what you bring to the table. And I think sometimes that can be missing within the communities, especially if you're just by yourself, well, what's my reason to stay? Like, why do I keep going day in and day out? Having to come up with these reasons to stay in the camp community, not just for the camp itself, but for me as an individual. Like, why do I want to continue to do this? Why do I want to continue to do this work? I can speak on the circles that I am a part of. So I am a member of OMA, which is the Outdoor Ministries Association for the UCC. And then I'm a part of PCCCA, which is the Presbyterian Camp Church and Conference Association. And so they put on annual conferences every year, and then different program specific conferences. So they have one that's program connection for program people, maintenance connection for maintenance individuals, and it's open and wide open for many people, but it's mostly those two groups that showcase themselves at those conferences. And usually when I go to those conferences, I am the sole Black person outside of the vendors that are there for the hall. You can go and talk to different vendors. And it has been that way since I started going to these conferences. Or there's speakers, and the speakers are people of color talking about racial justice and things along that nature. And it can be a great spot for me to share information that I know and with my peers if I feel comfortable in doing it. And sometimes it's a lot of work to come up and say, I want to talk about racial diversity again, or, I'm the only Black person here, and I'm being looked at for answers, which I'm happy to give, but I'm only one person and one perspective, and I don't know everyone's camp and camp background. So I don't want to make an assumption about what's going on at someone's camp by making a statement and then alienating myself from potential opportunities at other sites, because we're a community, and like people may say, well, I don't know, Jannard said something wide about camping, and I don't know if he was trying to target our camp and if we want him to be there moving forward. So it was, I'm the only person of color that's been at those events outside of the vendors and the speakers for quite some time. And it's daunting, but it's not unfamiliar. It feels like that is the landscape. And so I know what I'm getting myself into since this time it's been there. And so I just kind of go in knowing, and you make connections, and people respect for what you bring to the table. And a lot of times people are willing to hear what is there, because people want to learn, but you have to be okay with sharing and being uncomfortable. Something that also that I think about is just the business model. I think the other two touched on this, which is about the branches versus coming out the camp. The business structure of working at a camp is not like any other business. It is very unique, and you have to buy in. Like, to be a camp professional, I think from when I was very young, people were telling me this is a lifestyle, and I had to buy into that belief system, even though I feel like that could potentially be a toxic way to view a profession. I think it can work for some people. It does not work for a lot of people, and then that really shrinks the pool. When you tell people this is a lifestyle and these are the expectations, either get with it or don't get with it, when we could be talking about different ways to make this more business oriented, where you could have positions that are 9 to 5, you could have positions that are flexible, and talking about that. But that comes with conversations about money and how you're going to pay people, and the setup, and breaks the code. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I don't know if a lot of people, everybody agrees that it's not broke, right? I could look at it and say, oh no, this is destroyed. Like, we need to make this better. Other people say, no, it works fine. So it's all about perspectives too. And who's going to listen to your perspective, and do you have enough power to make change in your organization? I know that there was a question
You put out a mouthful out there.
Yeah, I know.
Oh wow. Thank you so much. Thank you all for taking up the time to share and give your insights tonight. I do hope that this has been helpful for those who are leading camps and retreat centers who are not Black. I also hope that there'll be some Black people who watch this and might consider thinking about ways that you already like the outdoors. You maybe perhaps you've been to a camp or you want to learn more. Hopefully this will give you an invitation to reach out to me. Excuse me. And see what's next. You can always start by coming to a Black Joy retreat. We have a couple planned this summer, starting in a couple weeks. It's March tomorrow. So starting in March, which is tomorrow, March 16th on Thursdays, every other Thursday, Jannard and I will lead a learning series, giving those in the field who are directors and leaders opportunity to engage and think more. The sessions are on looking at leisure as being cultural, having the conversation about who owns the outdoors. That's a big cultural thing, and listening about this and thinking about the ways we engage from our culture and other cultures who engage the outdoors. And I think one of you mentioned like people wondering like, is this for me? Do I belong? Or I think that was you, DQ, speaking about creating that belongingness right now. So how do we do that? How does that happen when there's ideas about ownership of the outdoors? How do we create that space? We'll address the whole thing around the nature gap. And then we'll talk about what it looks like to be an ambassador of inclusion. How do we do that? So if you're interested in that, it'll be more information coming out really soon that you can register and sign up and take the course with Jannard and I on deracializing the outdoors. So I want to thank you all for your time tonight. Again, happy Black History Month. We Blackanize in the outdoors by hopefully getting more Black people engaged in enjoying outdoor recreation and wildland spaces and activities. So you all have a great night, and please feel free to email me if you need to. If you heard anything here tonight, you have more questions, you want to have more conversation, you want us to come and do a training at your camp, we're open for it. We're here for it. So please do reach out. All that information will be contained in the message that comes with this video. So have a good night.